Welcome back to the Significant Coaching Podcast. This is our recruiting segment, and I'm your host, Matt Rogers. Before we dive in, a quick reminder, if you haven't already, make sure to favorite this show, leave a comment, and subscribe over at CoachMattRogers.com. That way you'll never miss an episode, a recruiting tip, or the tools we're building to help athletes, parents, and coaches. Today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Ryan Callahan, Director of Athletics at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. And our focus is all about college recruiting. Ryan brings a rare perspective. He's led as an athletic director, supported legendary coaches. He was a professional athlete. He is an alumnus of the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and he's seen firsthand how recruiting decisions shape programs and families alike. In this half of our discussion, Ryan shares insights from inside the athletic director's chair, what families need to know, what coaches are really looking for, and how the recruiting process truly works behind the scenes. If you're a recruit, a parent, or a coach, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Let's get into part 2 with Ryan Callahan. Coach Callahan, so great to talk to you again. I want to talk a little bit recruiting. Let's start with how you got recruited to Whitewater. I want to hear that story.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Janesville, Wisconsin. Janesville was a General Motors town.
Yeah.
I think it had one of the oldest plants in the country, strong tradition for a number of sports. So I think at an early age, I was fortunate to be around some really good athletes. And that was men and women. When I was in high school, Misty Bass was the state player of the year in Wisconsin for basketball for 4 years. Went to Duke, WNBA. Terry Ryan, the GM for the Minnesota Twins at the time, as a Janesville Parker guy. Chris Keelan, his son just got drafted in the first round by the Giants. His dad was a Janesville guy, went to Southeast Missouri or Louisiana State. So I was fortunate where you hear these stories about these athletes from your town that were playing at a pretty high level, which also means that there was people that were watching that town, right? People were there. They knew the names. And my coach at the time coached a lot of these guys that played Division I baseball. They went to Purdue, like I said, Southeast Louisiana State, some solid JUCOs, Indian Hills out in Iowa, which you're probably aware of.
Yep.
So he was really impactful with talking to coaches about, hey, check this guy out, check this guy out. I was a pretty late bloomer, man. I was like 5'7", 5'8", 120 pounds going into my senior year, and
Wow.
played 3 sports, soccer, hockey, baseball. Wasn't sure which one I really wanted to pursue. And my baseball coach had a good relationship with Jim Miller, who used to be the coach up here. Said, hey, see what happens, see if you can get this guy, and wanted to go close to home. My dad was diagnosed with cancer in 1998. So I graduated in 99, so I knew I wanted to stay close to home for family reasons and everything else. And that was my story. It's traditional, but untraditional, right? It was a little bit late in the game, but grateful that Jim Miller and Whitewater gave me a chance. And I was getting looked at by some other JUCOs and some other schools. The funniest thing is that I actually wrote letters to 3 other WIC schools that didn't let me in. So now I give their coaches grief and saying, man, I could be the AD at La Crosse or Oshkosh or Stevens Point if you would have let me in.
I love that. From an AD's perspective, how do you talk to your coaches about recruiting?
Ooh, man, this is really tough. This is tough. It's a lot different. So I'm 44 years old. Back in the day, you played your youth organization, whether it was basketball or whatever it was. And now it's such a different beast now.
Yeah.
Volleyball, some of the sports like volleyball, they've always had a strong club scene. So you knew that if you played for the Milwaukee Sting and you were on their A team, you were probably going to be a pretty high level Division I, fringe Division II, high level Division III player. The Sting team number 2. Now baseball's gone to a very club model, where some of the best players in the state are playing with different clubs and not necessarily on their high school team. Basketball, think back in the day when, Matt, for you, there might have been 2 AAU teams in the state.
Oh, yeah. I had to drive 3 hours to play AAU in the 80s and the early 90s, yeah.
And nowadays, I think my 9-year-old son who's never played basketball is asked to play AAU. It's everywhere.
It is.
So I think the first thing you have to do is you have to maintain those relationships with the coaches that you trust. Whitewater our flagship programs are education and business. So a lot of our folks that graduate that want to stay within athletics are going into education. They're going into coaching and teaching and everything else. And so having those relationships with your alum where, if they're coaching in Greenfield, Wisconsin, whether or not you have somebody that can play, let me talk to you about the teams that you're playing this year.
That's right.
So then you can not only coach, but help me evaluate some of these. If it's a soccer player, hey, can you watch Heartland Arrowhead? Did they got this outside backer number 10? Let me know if she can play at our level. So having those networks is no different than the professional side, right?
That's right.
If you have a network that knows somebody who knows somebody that can get you in contact, that's just like our coaches. So making sure they're building their network of high school coaches and club coaches, that they're honest with them, which ultimately turns into a trust relationship. And we're fortunate that we've had a lot of success in many of our sports over the last 20 years. So now you're getting some of these coaches that, club coaches specifically, they want to send their kids to Division I, right? It's a resume boost. Come play here. I got 15 kids going to Division I. But they also want to send them to some of the higher level D3s. And we're in that category of, if you can have a kid play for your club and say that they went to UW-Whitewater, that's a feather in their cap too. The other thing that we talk a lot about is, I think there's a level of, and Coach Gard talked about this, and I thought he did a great job of building your team, which is your identity. Going out and getting some renegades because they can play doesn't mean that it's always going to work. So you have to find out what level, plug and play, what type of student athlete do you want? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? I joked with my basketball coach. I get these emails from these kids from Croatia that say they can ball. And I'm like, hey, jokingly, check him out. He's Ryan. He's a 5'10" guard. I don't need any more 5'10" guards.
Yeah.
So evaluating talent that way, where it's okay, I know in 3 years I'm going to lose my 6'5" wing. Then you better recruit a 6'4", 6'5" wing, so then you can replace it. So having that recruiting plan, no different than the facility plan that we were talking in the earlier segment, and making sure that you're getting the right people.
Yeah.
I fully believe in diversity. I fully believe in equity, and giving people the opportunity that might not look like me, might not have the same history as me, might not have the same backstory as me, but giving people a chance to succeed at our level, I think is pretty special. And if you look at a lot of our rosters, we're going to look very different than other schools. And I take pride in that. We're going to recruit from more of the cities. We're going to recruit from more of the bigger cities where it is more diverse. And let's not shy away from that. Let's embrace that.
That's right.
But if we're going to embrace that and we're going to be intentional, then my campus has to buy in and support everybody. And that's where we're pretty lucky. We do have a solid support system at Whitewater. So if you're coming from Podunk, Wisconsin, rural town, or if you're coming from the inner city of Chicago or Milwaukee, hey, we're going to support you, we're going to serve you, and we're going to get you out of this place with a degree.
Yeah. We're going to teach you how to care about each other, even though you're from different places. And
100%. And that's the beauty of sport.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about camps. How important are camps to your coaches, and from your perspective that your coaches are running camps, not just to find talent, but to create that culture with the community and build that embrace of the community?
Yeah, and I think we talked about earlier, if you're going to have a program, then you got to support your program. And we're fortunate where our budgets for our varsity teams probably are about 60 to 70% of what we're going to spend. So we have to find ways to fundraise. And we're lucky we've had some really successful camps over the last 30, 40 years. And a lot of those camps are going to generate revenue to subsidize the shortages in our operating budget. But it's a great way to get the community involved. Work with the local boys and girls clubs, work with Whitewater Youth Soccer, get them over here, get them practicing, get them working, getting on our facilities. If you walk into Perkins Stadium where we play football, we've had lacrosse camps in there. We've had boys soccer. We've had girls soccer. We've had obviously football camp in there. We'll do some softball stuff in there. We'll do some baseball stuff in there. Showcase those facilities. And I think the other part of that is getting those young people excited about college.
That's right.
I'm a firm believer in higher education. The better educated we are, the better our society is. And if we can get some of those young people to come to our campus, and even if they don't go to Whitewater, that's fine. But if they're like, yeah, I want to go to I want to go to Whitewater, I want to go to wherever, that's a great experience. So really the focal point is obviously going to bring them in, get them a great experience. Because a lot of those kids, this is the first time they're on a college campus. And the last thing I want is these kids to walk away from a college campus, going back to their parents and then stunk.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to college anymore if that's what it's like. So a lot of it's getting them on campus, getting them excited for their future.
Yeah.
Letting our coaches hopefully make some money to support their program, provide a little relief in the fundraising aspect. And then the other one is it's a great way to have some of your recruits come to campus and get a taste of what it's like.
Yeah.
If you're going to play football at UW-La Crosse and I go to a camp there and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that great. Guess what? That's probably how it's going to be. Or on the flip side of that, if you go to La Crosse football camp and you think it's great, then you made the right decision. So it's huge for our region. And our tennis camps have been going strong. If you Google Wisconsin tennis camps, I'm pretty sure we're the number one hit that you're going to get. Our volleyball camps are selling out every single week. Our coaches do a great job. So it's just, the other part of this too is like the community service aspect. And I'm probably light on my coaches with community service because I know they work so hard in the summer with summer camps and working youth camps. And that to me is community service as well.
It is, for sure. Yeah. I'm always interested in talking to ADs about their expectations that they provide to coaches about recruiting in terms of numbers and where roster sizes you and your chancellor want that roster size to be, but also what that roster, you talked about diversity, but what that roster looks like in terms of the character that you want represented. And you touched on that a little bit too. What are those conversations like when you're talking to your coaches, whether it's a staff meeting or your one-on-one meetings with your head coaches?
Yeah, so we have a roster plan that predates me. I don't know how many years, but what I tell my coaches a lot is I want you to have a manageable roster for what staff level you have. Right. So I'll give you an example. We have a bowling coach, a bowling team, and our bowling coach is ultra successful. She was like the Division I Bowler of the Year a couple years ago, national champion, crazy good. So she's a new coach, a fresh coach, tons of talent. I can't give her 20 bowlers as a 50% coach. That's not fair.
That's right.
I also don't want to require my football team, who has probably the largest staff, 225, because that's not fair either. So we try to have those conversations with the coaches to say, women's soccer, what do you want? Men's soccer, what do you want? Softball, baseball, track, men's and women's, what do you want? Let's try to figure out how we can manage that roster while maintaining Title IX compliance with proportionality and everything else. I don't want you to go to the Division I model where the golf has 8 players. We're not going to go there, but let's see what we can do so you're not going crazy, you're not getting burned out, and you want to come back next year and coach.
Right. Yeah.
And we're a little bit different than some of those schools that we were talking about previously, where we're not 60% of the incoming class as athletes. We have, 9,000 undergraduates. We have about 600 athletes.
Yeah.
So if I go from 550 to 610, that doesn't necessarily move the needle a ton in the overall enrollment space. And I want to stay in that. I want to stay right there. I just have a hard time if I'm not staffing my teams in a certain level, then how can I ask them to take more players? We always fall back on the student athlete experience, right?
Yep.
Well, how are you going to have a positive student athlete experience, Matt, if you and I are number 41 and 42 on the baseball team?
I've been saying that for years. I don't know how many kids happy. I don't know how you go into it thinking you're going to keep that many happy.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And then it's a safety issue too.
Maybe it's not happy. You're right. It's a safety issue, but it's also a developmental issue. Yeah. Okay, we have 8 coaches, but we still only have one field. We have only so many cages. You're only getting so many reps when you got 45 kids or 42 kids on a field.
Yeah, it's tough. One of our friends, their softball coach, and we were talking rosters, and not to throw out any names, but she gave me their roster that they would like her to have. I'm like, especially in softball,
I know
you need 4 pitchers all year. You don't need 8.
That's right.
10.
That's right.
You need 4. So how can you possibly have a softball roster that's at 40? We hosted a volleyball team last year. I'll never forget this. We put out 20 chairs on the opposing, each side of the scores table. There were volleyball players that were sitting in the first 2 rows of the bleachers because that's how many players they had in the team.
Oh my gosh. What does that budget look like that they could travel with that many kids?
If your numbers on a volleyball team, if you're number 17 through 30,
I don't get
that's
that
tough.
either.
That's tough.
I don't get that at all. What do you want from character? Is there that conversation about what we want that Whitewater kid to look like? Not so much look, but how they represent who you are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's going to be different, right? I think when you get some of these kids that are 17, 18 years old, they don't know. They don't know what it's like. Part of my job and this firsthand is you got to deal with some compliance. I've had people that have come to my office and we're talking about a situation and they just start bawling. They made a bad decision.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that to impact the rest of their life. And I'm not saying cry your way out of a ticket. You can tell in some of these conversations that, like, those people felt really bad.
Yeah.
And you have some other kids that are like, whatever, man. I think you're going to screw up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't really have remorse for what they did.
Okay.
We talk about that threshold of you can only have so many people have this attitude before it just becomes, it's a cancer.
That's right.
You can have a couple people that might have a certain ability, but they don't have the best personality that meshes with the team. But once you get over a threshold, that's when you lose a team.
That's right.
So that's a lot of what we talk about is if transfers. Famously, one of my mentors always said, everybody transfers for a reason. Now, this is before the portal, so take that with a grain of salt. And every transfer that we've ever had, they've been right. What happened? Oh, I didn't get along with the coach. Well, that you were the coach. Oh, I didn't get along with the players. And come to find out, it was our guy that didn't get along with the players. It wasn't the players that didn't get along with him or her. So we talk a lot about that. And the other thing is, I tell all my coaches, you're spending that much time with these players. Do you really want to be around a jerk? Do you really want to?
Yeah.
There's a lot of good athletes out there that are just really nice people.
Yeah.
And being young and naive is different than the other side of that.
That's right.
So it's really figuring out who they are as people. And I think at our level, recruiting is a little bit different. Like at the Division I level, you go on an official visit for a couple of days. And our old football coach, his daughter was a successful Division I basketball volleyball player. And he was telling me he's going to Minnesota and Wisconsin and all the Big Ten schools. And they're recruiting my wife and I more than they're recruiting my daughter because they're trying to figure out how crazy we are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I never heard that, but I think that's true is you're not just recruiting the child, you're recruiting the parents too. Because a lot of it, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So you're trying to figure out what are the parents like? Is that something that I can deal with for the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. You know that as a coach and an AD, it only takes one parent that doesn't get it to really hurt a season and to hurt a coach long term.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a great quote, last one, that our baseball coach uses. It's not who you can win with, it's who you can lose with.
That's right.
And that's what we're telling the coach. And I tell our coaches that all the time. We want to win, and I want to win. I never want to be the AD that takes over when Whitewater lost its reign over certain sports. But when it's all said and done, who can you walk away from a loss with? And that's even for coaches too. If a coach has a bad season, who can I go through that with? It's easy when you're winning.
Yeah.
You're going to win with anybody. But once their cards are down and you're not having a great hand, who can you deal with that with?
Yeah. Coach, I like to end the recruiting segment with a little bit of advice to parents and kids that are going through that recruiting journey. Is there a piece of advice you'd give to a parent out there that wants their kid to play at Whitewater, or their kid's excited about Whitewater? What direction would you give them about playing at the next level and getting there?
The biggest piece of advice I would give them is your child has to want it more than you. If you want it more than your child, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
College sports are an absolute grind. And I hate using that word, but if you're not in it, you're not going to last.
No.
If your child doesn't want it, you're not going to last. You're waking up 4 days a week at 5 to go work out. You're coming back to work out. You're hitting in the cages. You're shooting free throws. You're in the pool. You're wrestling one-on-one every single day.
Yeah.
So if your child wants it, they'll find a spot to play. They will. There's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you want to come to Whitewater and you think your kid wants to come to Whitewater, but you want it more than your child, Whitewater's not the place.
That's right. I wrote a book on recruiting, and my first chapter is commitment. And I walk families through what that looks like as a parent and what that looks like as a student athlete. Because if you're not committed, you can forget everything else. We don't have to talk about anything else. You got to be all in, and your kid's got to be the one that's driving it, like you said. How about a piece of advice for that 16, 17, 8-year-old that really wants to play in college? Maybe they're at Lena, maybe they're at Janesville, they're at a smaller town, and they don't get all the attention. What advice do you give them to get the attention of your coaches or to get the attention of college coaches?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I'm a firm believer in reaching out personally to the coaches. With the iPhones or whatever phone you have, like the video is pretty clear. Like Matt, I think you and I could probably make a highlight film. It might take us a little bit, but we could probably do it.
It might take both of us, yes, but yes, I agree.
We'll get it done.
Yeah.
There's ways that you can record your son or daughter competing, whatever that is. And I would encourage clipping some of those together and putting some footage together. And hopefully your high school coach is supportive, having them write a letter of rec and having the student be the person contacting the coach. Having that initiative, that respect, have that maturity, whatever you want to call it, reaching out to these coaches. And you're exactly right. If you're from a small town and you want to do some things, it is a lot harder, right? Because you have so much more access in the larger towns of, we'll say 60,000 and above. You're going to have more sports. You're going to have more travel opportunities. I think if you're looking at a really high level, people will find you. You know, it doesn't matter how small the town is, like you will be found with huddle and football. And obviously if you're thinking swimming, cross country and track, those times are your times and those distances are your distances.
Right.
So there's a lot of sports where it's I don't want to say it's easy because nothing's easy, but your metrics are right there.
Yeah.
If you're a miler and your mile is this time, you know where you're at in the state honor roll.
That's right.
You probably know where you're at in the Midwest. You probably know where you're at nationally.
Yeah.
So if you're there, you can send those out to the coaches. As far as some of the ball sports like soccer, baseball, softball, football, I think that's where it's a little bit more of you have to do it organically. Cut some film for yourself, send it out to the prospective coaches, be diligent. You know, just because a coach doesn't get back to you within 5 minutes, like a text message from your buddy, it's okay. That doesn't mean that they just deleted it. And if they did delete it, send it to them again.
That's right.
You talked about camps. Go to a camp.
Yeah.
If you want to play baseball at Coe College, call the coach at Coe College and say, hey, I'm from this town. I'm in Iowa. I want to play baseball for you. You know, what can I do? You know, so there's things that you can do. There's the technology that's out there. There's also more people that are trying to get some of those spots. And the other thing I will say, and I really believe this, is that every year that pyramid gets smaller and smaller. People quit. People decide that they want to go to a trade school. People decide that they want to go work for this company or corporation or whatever it is. So by the time you get to your senior year, there's enough baseball players at most schools to have a freshman baseball team or a freshman basketball team. There's probably only 3 or 4 seniors left.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's across the country.
That's right.
So just getting to senior year of competition, that's something to be proud of. Now, if you want to go past that, you can, but you got to do some of those things. And I really believe there's enough good people out there that are doing their hard work. They're putting in time. Talent will find itself. There's going to be a college coach who's buddies with your high school coach, who's buddies with this person that says, hey, you got to check out this softball pitcher from Nebraska.
Yeah.
And here you go.
Yeah.
It's a grind, and it's changed a lot over the last 20 years. I don't know if it's changed for the better, but the recruiting nets have gotten a lot further.
Yeah.
When I was recruiting for baseball in the 2008 to 14, if I'd looked at a kid from 30 miles away, there's no chance that there was a Division I school that was reaching out to them. And now all of a sudden, the Division I nets are so wide, they're so expansive, and they're taking some of those kids from rural Wisconsin, which good for them, right? Good for them. But now it's even more competitive all over the country. So,
You got to be really trying not to get recruited today. It's so easy to put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm here. Would you take a look at me? It's a lot easier than it was 30 years ago when I was going through this.
no, and they have the recruiting companies, and that's tough, right? I talk to a lot of coaches, and some say, oh, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And others say, I don't even look at it. And those are a lot of money.
It is.
They're a lot of money for those parents to put into that. And from what I've heard is, of course, the recruiting company is going to tell you how good your child is because you're paying them to do that. So if you're a coach, you're like, that's not really unbiased.
Yeah.
You paid $2,500 for this company to tell me how good your child is.
Yeah.
They should, because you paid $2,500.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you want it, you can get it. It's going to be some work.
I agree. Ryan, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Everything I hope we would get out of this conversation, we did and more. And I'm so thankful that there's people like you leading athletic departments because you've got such a big heart, such a great soul. And I want families to understand that's 99% of athletics is really great people that are your neighbor that you'd see at a barbecue are running athletic departments and coaching these teams. They're good people. And I don't want parents afraid. I don't want parents and kids afraid to reach out and say, hey, we're interested, or we want to come watch a game, because it'd be such a value for them to be a part of a school like UW-Whitewater.
Oh, 100%. We're lucky. We got 16 head coaches, and I'll be comfortable having all of them as my emergency contacts.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Thank you for doing this. I wish you guys all the best of luck, and we'll be cheering for you as you continue to ride this great run of success you've had.
Appreciate it, Matt. You have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap of part 2 of my conversation with Ryan Callahan here on the Significant Recruiting Podcast. I hope you picked up on the depth of his perspective, how recruiting isn't just about filling rosters, but about finding the right fit for athletes, families, and programs. If you're a recruit or a parent walking through this journey, take Ryan's advice to heart. Understand what coaches and athletic directors are really looking for, be intentional in your communication, and remember that the best opportunities come when you know your value and where you belong. As always, if you haven't already, make sure to favorite this show, leave a comment, and subscribe at CoachMattRogers.com. That's where you'll find the full library of podcast episodes, weekly recruiting tips, and resources like my significant recruiting book and the new recruits journals. Thanks again to Ryan for sharing his insights, and thank you for listening. Until next time, stay focused, stay humble, and be significant.